Shabana, okay. Who are is rest of them? I can't see because I'm logging in through phone. Yeah, so how do we go over? So I right away start away the lecture on overthinking, how to control overthinking, isn't it? I think right now many of us are feeling about overthinking. What if I switch on the camera on? Is my background good or what? Will the doctor ask me a question to participate? So all of you are overthinking anyways. So so today we're gonna talk about how to stop this.
Okay.
So when as a psychiatrist point of view, overthinking comes, we have to rule out a lot of disorders. We may think that overthinking is just dwelling on one particular thought. Excuse me. Yeah. One particular thought which comes in again and again, and we get stuck in that and we start procrastinating about it. But it's much more broader than we think. The first thing is it could be because of something underlying fear. So, underlying fear could manifest with anxiety. The first thing to rule out is something called as anxiety disorder. I think some of you will you connect with me here because there might be some of you who might be having certain anxiety. So, with this lecture, I can help you recognize that. So, now a family member who's suffering with that, it's a very common condition. So, when it comes to the underlying anxiety disorder again falls into a broad spectrum. Like, some people have social anxiety. Like, let's say from your childhood, you hesitate, talking to many people, or you hesitate when the teacher tells you to present something or go write on the board. You kind of fear, and you have some palpitations inside you. You start sweating, your palms start sweating. These things manifest something from the childhood and which goes unrecognized. If not treated in time, this will lead to overthinking. How? For example, let's give in your adult life, you're coming in a situation where you have to do something, and suddenly you're thinking about what the other people will think. Should I go? I mean, what will they think? And public eating. Should I eat? If I eat something, what will others think? I've bought this food, and then you go on from one topic. You just circle yourself with all this thought of what other people think, and you'll end up overthinking. But at the end of it, who's the victim? It's you. Even right now, that's what we are doing. Like switching the cameras off. It's so easy to listen to a lecture, but what's going on in your mind? Okay, what if I am pointed out? What if they ask me a question, and or maybe I'm not ready for this, these things you're still thinking about it. So I'm going to teach you how to let go of it with a technique which I'll tell you towards the end of this session, since we have a long session. So the number one thing we have to rule out with overthinking is anxiety disorders. One, I have given a very clear example of social anxiety, which starts from the childhood, like, the common fears which you see around. That is one thing which leads to overthinking. And the second overthinking is something called as OCD. I'm pretty sure that lot of you have, heard of OCD. When OCD comes in, you think a person is always cleaning, neat, very nice, systematic, hand washing. No, OCD doesn't stop there. OCD also manifests in the form of thoughts. Let's say, like, some people, I don't know, some of you may connect with me. They walk 4 steps and they say, no, I should walk one more step. Like, 5 steps, then only this will happen. The regular superstitions around us. Oh, a cat crossed the car. I'm going to wait for 5-10 minutes. Something bad will happen to me. And if you don't stop the car, you just keep thinking about it. Oh no, today something is going to happen. It's because of the underlying superstitions and beliefs which we have, which lands us in thinking, too much about it. Let's say you crossed a black eye, you still drove, and somehow you had a bad day. Your project was declined, you had a bad day, the teacher embarrassed you in front of everybody, and you attribute it to because I didn't stop the car. And then there goes your process of overthinking, you know, these kind of thoughts. But can we call it OCD? No. But when do we call it OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder? When it comes repeatedly again and again. Next time, every time whatever bad happens to you, you start attributing it to that one particular incident of not stopping the car. And it becomes a habit forming, compulsion. Though it is not a black cat, be it be white, pink, blue, anything, you will still stop. That's how the mind builds up from there. And you get into a pattern of obsession with it. And because of the obsession, you have the pattern of compulsion coming in, and the overthinking will become a part of your life. The recurrent thoughts will come again and again and again. So that is something called as ego dystonic because it's distressing to us. You will not be able to function in your day to day life. That is one group of disorders which are very important, which are very seen. What is the age group of all of you? Can anybody tell me what is the age group who are attending here?
I'm 18 plus. Most of them are college students.
Okay, 18 plus. Okay. So this is the time, 18 plus is what the time these disorders start. If any one of you, if you know a family member who keeps thinking, repeatedly they have the same thought, some people may have thoughts of sexual abuse. May seem a very broad spectrum, but very common. What if I do something to the other person? Some people may have thoughts of doing harming the other person. Don't ignore such things. This could be a part of your obsession. The repeated thoughts of this sexual, and some people have this repeated thoughts of counting. I do this much times, this will help me. If I revise for the exam 2 times, then only I'll pass. If I revise at least for 3 times, I'll not pass, but 2 times is my number. If that repeatedly haunts you and starts affecting your life, you need help for sure. We have to rule out something called as OCD. Most of us can't even know that what is that one particular thought which is going on. So what is important for all of you is, whenever you're having overthinking, find a pattern, write it down in a book, right? No, write it down and find a pattern. Is it one single thought which is coming again and again? Find a pattern, start journaling, write down your thoughts, and find that link. If it is one particular thought which is coming repeatedly again and again, it is called as an obsession. Then you don't belong into the category of overthinking anymore. You've already reached the obsessive stage. So let's identify that, and that can be corrected. Okay, better to identify early. This is one thing you have to remember. So there we are done with the OCD of overthinking. And next we come into a part of psychotic. Very broad spectrum in psychiatry again. Overthinking, some of us are different from our peers. Some of us are talking. Some of us are talking on a common neutral topic. But suddenly you see one person is, not talking about that particular topic, but being distracted, is telling all vague things from here and there. Like, it doesn't make any sense to us. We are all talking about one particular subject. Let's say, we are talking about a satellite. Suddenly, some person comes in and talks about candies. Out of nowhere, you're seeing there's so much of difference. We are talking about the Ukraine and Russia war out here. Some person comes about, talking about the president of United States. Like, he's talking about Obama, and there's no link, there's no connection to what it is. It's very important to identify such kind of peers to understand what is the psychopathology going on in them. So if you talk more with them, you will see that they are talking very random topics with no connection. So those group of people belong to the psychotic group, which again starts at the age group of 18 plus. As I've said, this is the age group which all of the major disorders rule out. The reason I'm emphasizing is early identification, so that any one of you know anybody, identify it, and take the help needed. The earlier you treat it, the better you become out there. Okay, so that's the reason I'm emphasizing on this. So that comes under the psychotic group of issues, psychotic pathology, which comes in. Okay, so next, that we are done with the psychotic, and now we go on to the very common thing, procrastination. I'm going to walk 2 kilometers today. Not happening. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow. No, I'm not just able to wake up. Again, overthinking, we'll end up becoming, we put on extra calories, extra weight, and you don't know what to do. How do we overcome this? And when somebody comments on your weight, we start thinking, I can't go anywhere, I'm too fat, I can't do anything. And there starts the cycle where you slowly go into a victim of depression. How do we stop this cycle? How do we stop this process of overthinking? And not just weight or exercise, anything. Let's say an exam or anything in your life, any relationship issues, anything, like, how to deal with it. Procrastination is the big culprit, which results in overthinking a lot. And eventually you start harming yourself for no reason. How do we stop it? Is a 5 second rule. Whenever you decide to do something, decide in 5 seconds. Okay, right now I'm gonna go. I think I should go for walking in another 20 minutes. Do it. One, two, three, four, five. Get up and go do it. The moment you cross 5 seconds, it's not gonna happen. Whatever thought comes in, let's say your age group, I'm going to go propose to her today. You will keep postponing the proposal. Do it in 5 seconds. No, I'm going to do it. Even if she gives you a slap or she accept, doesn't matter. That's not my subject. But just do it. Just go do it. That 5 second rule matters. Like, within 5 seconds, if you do it, your brain will be with you, or else your mind will start taking control over you. But unfortunately, we only have 5 seconds for our mind to control us. If at all you're thinking of doing something, start doing it in 5 seconds and it works. I'm going to study for an exam tomorrow. Do it right away. Start a topic in 5 seconds. If you postpone it to an hour or so, you'll lose interest. That is how it works. Okay. This 5 second rule is something you have to take home message for you. Okay. And then next, let's go into again. This procrastination is again a bigger topic. I'm not going to deal with it because we are already 4:25. It is. So at this time, I want any one of you any doubts out there. We'll move on, but I just want to know if there's anything you want to ask me regarding this OCD, psychosis, neurotic, or whatever I've explained you right now. Do you know anybody whom you think has some symptoms and you want to know what it is? Anybody who's interested to know that?
We have actually floated a form in chat box, so you can anonymously ask as well in that in those forms if you don't want to say it out.
Yeah, you have to help me with the form here. Yeah, okay, fine. So there's Abhinav, I think, right? Ma'am, can
Yeah.
you tell us about the symptoms of OCD? Okay, sure. So let's focus on that. Thanks for asking. It makes me talk more. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just blabbering and you all are getting bored. So, so OCD, as I've said already, is about we heard of washing and repeated counting, repeated checking. Very important. Starts at your age group. In fact, 18 plus is the major group. It's very difficult because you will be in a state of confusion what is happening. So if you really want to know, as I've said, the repeated thought pattern is important here. There are multiple thoughts coming in, but there will be one particular thought which will be again and again. There will be a link to it. Let me give you an example. Let's say if I have a repeated thought of doing something to a particular person, like I want to harm him, I just want to beat. Usually what I have in my OP are patients, mothers especially, young mothers in their 20s who come to me who think of harming their child. That is a repetitive thought. So instead of that correcting that thought, the mother keeps shouting at the child for no reason. The mother makes excuses, fights with the spouse for regarding this one particular child. But the mother is not able to identify that the repeated thought of harming her child, she's just trying to distract that energy somewhere else. Like by shouting at the kid, shouting at the spouse, shouting at the family member. She's just trying to avoid that thought. It takes a lot of time for her to identify the underlying thought, which is this, to harm the child or harm his particular friend or harm particular classmate, is the underlying root cause thought. That is the leading point for us to diagnose as obsession. To identify for that thought, you have to start writing it down every day. When you write, if you're a person, if you know a person who has a lot of overthinking and who has a lot of random negative thoughts, tell them to write it down and find a pattern, and I'm pretty sure they will find it. There'll be underlying one particular thought which is the main root of all these problems, and which is revolving around them. So that's how you identify OCD. Coming to treatment and all, you don't require it. You just have to know how to identify it. You're young, you can just identify in the population, you know whom to refer to. Okay, immediately tell them to take help. Earlier you treat it, the better. Okay, so that is with the OCD. I hope if you want more information, you can always ping me later or you can email me. I'll give you more details. Or if you know a friend who is going through this, if you want to ask me what you can do for you, I'll send you a whole list of how you can help the person who's down with OCD. Okay, so we move on. So apart from that, irregular overthinking, we all tend to overthink sometimes. We all have our own issues. Sometimes we tend to overthink. Like let's be a spousal problem, there will be a fight or argument at home with parents. Like a lot of things, especially in childhood, the parents always force us to get good scores, good marks. But if you will be carrying it out throughout your old age, and you will be like you will not be doing good at job. You'll always look for recognition, like just like how if a parent says your good job on getting 100%, but throughout, unknowingly, you're carrying it forward at your workplace. In your late 40s, you're carrying it in your workplace because until the boss appreciates you, you don't feel like you're doing a good job. And that kind of trait comes in if you start being overthinking right at a tender age. Like, do not look for appreciation. Number one thing to stop overthinking. Do not expect any, recognition of whatever you do. Like, you satisfy your own self. Okay, am I happy doing this? Do it. If you're not happy, don't do it. So start looking for appreciation or recognition from anybody. That will stop the overthinking. And the second thing is exercise and physical activity goes off in all the disorders of psychiatry. Physical activity is a must. No matter what you say, but there's a lot of research done on it. Whatever physical activity you do, it will help all the chemicals of your mind, serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, you name it. Exercise is the number one priority. That's why we see so much of, people focusing onto this health sector is, so much of emphasis on this exercise and gyms and, so many Zumba, aerobics. All those are booming because of this, because it does cause changes. It increases your dopamine. Dopamine, it gives you that rush to do something, the noradrenaline. So when noradrenaline is high, you stop thinking. You start doing things. You put yourself into action. So how do you increase the norepinephrine? No drugs, just exercise. It's like I see a tiger right now, either I fight or I run away. Which one? Both works. I don't have the capability to fight a tiger. I will run away. That's called as a flight response. It's a normal physiological response. I run away with all the energy I could because that is my norepinephrine telling me to do it. And how do I produce it? Is through exercise to get it. If I don't exercise, even if I'm not at all practicing, even if I see a tiger, I'm just gonna stand there and cry because I don't know what to do. That's how your mind becomes because you just don't know what to do. You're in utter shock, state of shock, standing like this, not able to do anything. That is because that is a signal that your body is giving that you are lacking physical activity. Let's say in day-to-day life, major crisis comes, grief period, we lose a loved one, something happens, a major illness come, something will happen in our life, sudden crisis, we are in a state of shock. But we do observe some people who are very good at crisis. In fact, who do multitasking. How? You go on, check their background, physical activity will be top on the list. Very much essential for anything, any solution, anything you want to face, even this overthinking. Physical activity takes priority. Never ignore that. Even if it is 20 minutes for our brain to produce that norepinephrine action, 20 minutes is more than enough for a good mental health. Start doing it and see how it works for you. And of course, so we are done with physical activity. These two are very things which we have to keep practicing. Apart from this, getting things into action, sitting and pondering about a particular thought is not going to help you. Always figure out a planning and strategy. You have an exam starting 2 weeks from now. You're going on calling up all your friends what to do, how to do, going up, calling up, researching on all the important questions, and you're already wasting a lot of time. Start putting things into action. Take a pen and paper, the old system, write down your, what you're going to do, and keep short term goals. Don't keep long term goals like I'm going to finish 100 pages in 1 hour. No, impossible, even in a day. Keep short term goals, 10 pages in 1 hour. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Start short term and then make long term goals. That is one thing which you have to planning and strategy with short term goals. Don't right away aim for a long term goal. It's not going to happen. It will tend you to go into overthinking. Make very short plans and things will work for you. That is one thing how you overcome it. And the last technique which I'm going to tell you is thought stopping. Whenever a thought comes in, like, you are all a group of youngsters, there's a lot of relationship issues might be going on. Breakups are very common. These things, how to face them. How will I go to the classroom to face this particular person? A very common thing in my OP where young teenagers do come in because of you can't discuss it with your teachers, you can't discuss it with your parents, but you can discuss this with the therapist. You don't know. You feel like I lost everything. She said no to me. How am I going to face the classroom? What will my friends think about me? All these issues. This is overthinking again. How do you cope up with this? That is the answer. Like, you just come in and just thinking my life is over. A lot of self cuts, suicidal cuts, which we see every day in our OPs, teenagers coming with because you're not able to talk about it. So, first thing, talk about it. So what if it is a teacher, a friend, even a parent? In fact, encourage it. Like, it's not that the other person is going to judge you. Don't keep it inside you, even if it is something really personal to you. It's okay to talk about it, normalize it. Talk to a friend or a teacher about it. Like, I have this particular thought. I feel very embarrassed to come into class. Take their help. Don't hesitate. If you don't, this overthinking will come to a point where you start feeling hopeless, helpless, and you start feeling you're completely worthless. Just based on one incident, you'll start thinking in that way, and it will go all the way where you feel like cutting yourself. Such kind of habits can be stopped by effective communication. If you don't like to talk to a teacher, therapist, or a parent, approach a friend. Like, if you still don't want to go friends, we are in a tech era right now. There are a lot of self-help groups. People are available online who can talk. There are a lot of counselors, and a lot of us are on Instagram. We are very much active on it. One message and it will just make you feel so much better, not to go to the pattern of where you start inflicting cuts on yourself to relieve the thinking and pain. And do not go into drugs and alcohol, of course, because this is also one of the delayed manifestations of overthinking. Overthinking comes in when you stop talking about it. The moment you start communicating, talking about it, you see that the thinking pattern actually slows down. You actually see that the mind can be distracted once you talk about it. If you don't talk about it, the thinking will go and it will start. That's where it starts, and it will go all the way till depression and then suicidal thoughts and self cutting. These are the things which we see. A lot of people also do feel that the drugs, actually, because we are trained in this, you actually feel a kind of elation, you feel in a top high, but unfortunately that is also what makes cognitive decline. If you're doing it for overthinking, stop it, because it's only going to worsen your overthinking. It's going to eventually decrease your intelligence. It's going to decrease that slowing. You will start seeing that the things you're doing, you're going to be very slow in that, and you feel it is just that you're thinking too much. But unfortunately, it is these drugs which are acting on you. It will cause you cognitive decline. Don't get into it at any point. Best solution is talk about it to somebody. Even if you're taking any substance, nothing to worry. These can also be treated. If you are a person who's addicted to any kind of smoking, alcohol, or any other substance, don't think that this is it. There is help, there is treatment for this. A lot of people have recovered from this de-addiction, and you can actually take that option. You can also actually consider that option. But the first thing is, get it checked. Overthinking, don't just push it away saying I'm just a person who thinks too much. Probably that's my personality. Again, personality comes into a broad spectrum. Just think about it, get it evaluated, because the pattern of overthinking is what is important for us, for not to miss any major diagnosis in there. That is important. Where we all have overthinking in certain patterns. If there are things which you can let overthinking happens, let's say once a week or once in two, just ignore it. But if you see it's become a part of your life, it's become a habit forming, it's always been there with you, time to identify, to rule out any psychiatric disorders underlying. Okay. So the last aspect of overthinking is something called as borderline personality. If you, or if you know any family members or friends who have black and white thinking, there are people who think all my classmates are good to me because I scored good. And suddenly you had bad marks. Everybody said, "Oh, you got bad marks out of nowhere. You are the person who got it. How come?" And then all the classmates become bad for you. The good, black and white thinking, the yin and yang kind of thinking. Either everybody should be good or either everybody is bad. And you fail to see the gray line in between. In fact, the classmates are surprised, like, how come you, a good student with good marks, got into bad? But our mind refuses to think that. Our mind says that now everybody is bad. They're all bad to me. I'm alone. Or if something good happens, they're all good to me. I have all. This is called as black and white thinking, very common, very one of the number one causes of overthinking so much about it. So that needs to be corrected. That's going to be a part of your personality. And you also may see some classmates who are extremely well dressed, who are extremely talkative, who are extremely, and you feel that suddenly you start comparing yourself with them. And that's where the second personality comes in, which is dependent type of personality and anxious avoidant personality. It's not always comparison with the other person. I'm not dressed good like her, I'm not up to her. These kind of come into a broad spectrum of personality disorder, which in fact the pattern starts from childhood. Very important to identify them. If you're just curious to know your personality, there are tests for that. There are some, MCQs which you have to answer, and you can know which personality you belong to. A very good thing, with a series of 100 to 110 questions, you can actually know which personality you belong to, which will help you. So you can do things as per your personality. Okay? Isn't it cool? At least one person message anonymous, or at least smile from switching off the camera. Where do we get that? Arpita Girish? Yeah. So where do we get that? Questions is, of course, with a therapist. You can go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, only can do it. Yeah, that's very cool, Nilesh. Thank you for saying that. But don't fall into this victim of these online platforms. Don't pay for it. Only a psychologist or a therapist or a psychiatrist can do it, because those are. It's called as Minnesota Multiphasic Inventory. If you're just curious about the name, it's called as MMPI. It's a short form. It's a personality inventory, which you can, if you find it online, good. You can do it yourself. MMPI it is called as, and you can know which personality you are. And then we can tell you if you're a person who overthinks or who don't think at all. So things as easy as that with one single questionnaire. So again, personality is something, we don't call it disorder anymore. Initially, it was called disorder. Now it was scrapped after the new books of new guidelines have come, because we all used to categorize disorder. The term is very stigmatizing, so we removed that. We all belong to different personalities. Knowing your good strengths and weaknesses helps, like avoid the things which you're weak at, start focusing more on your strengths. This will help. So that is about the personality spectrum, where overthinking is again seen in certain type of personalities. Not everybody overthinks, but there are few personalities like anxious, avoidant, borderline spectrum. These personalities go into a pattern of overthinking. So how do I identify? I have already given you a clue. Look for persons who think in this black and white manner, either all good or bad, not seeing the gray area. These are some signs that there is some personality issues going on. Okay, so that's all for. I think I've covered a mini psychiatric amount of overthinking, and my target was to emphasize so that you don't miss on any major disorders. The rest all overthinking, lot of material available. I know you're all very good at Google. You will be practicing that also. That is more than enough. But these are the major psychiatric disorders which you cannot miss on, because it will actually impair with your functional life. You'll not be able to work, peacefully. So identification is the key here. If you see anything abnormal, identify it and take an online consultation with anybody, not necessarily me. You have Practo, which gives consultations for only 190. Like you can use any platform with a person who's officially trained in this. Don't go for some quacks, but officially trained in. Take help, sort it out. This is the right age group to do it. Trust me, earlier you catch it, the better functional outcome you have. What happens in psychiatry is all until something dramatic happens, like very violent episode, a person is abnormal, it's too late. You'll be like stuck with drugs. If you identify it right now, trust me, you can have a much better life ahead. Okay, I hope I did justice to this lecture.
Yes,
And
ma'am,
if
you
you
did.
have further questions,